All right, welcome to another live edition of Blacklisted Radio. It is good to be back here in the studio. First show of December. It's been a while, so welcome. I'm just so thrilled. I've been sick, I've been down, and to be able to do the show just really it invigorates me. So good to have you along. It's the 17th day of December. I'm Doug Owen, the senior editor of Blacklisted Radio.com, and of course my website blacklistednews.com. You can find all the stories that we were going to be talking about there. So it's been a crazy couple weeks here since we did the last show. It's really even hard to pick a trajectory for the show. One of the things I saw getting a lot of traction today, and I guess we should just talk about before we take your phone calls. By the way, you can go to blacklistedradio.com, check out the interactive chat room, or maybe more accurately, troll room. And you can find myself, the ambassadors there. You can call into the show, 800-313-9443. Go to republicbroadcasting.org for more. A lot of good stuff on the website about the radio network. So for you listening via the mothership, check that out. So this article came out. Implications, martial law. Preparing for martial law. If you haven't heard, the UN may send UN troops, the blue helmets, to Chicago. This was making a lot of rounds today, making a lot of headlines. Cook County Commissioner Richard Boykin recently met with the Assistant Secretary of General of the United Nations, during which he requested that the world governing body send troops into the violence-plagued streets of Chicago. Now, this, of course, has sparked a lot of headlines. And for you out there that have been listening to this show since its inception, almost a decade ago, going into our 10th year, some of you have been probably listening to Republic Broadcasting for 20 years. One of the narratives in, I guess, the conspiracy black helicopter-esque connotations that came along with, a lot of people on Patriot Radio, for lack of a better term, or a more accurate one. There was a lot of paranoia about the United Nations taking over America. And I guess there is still a lot of that here today. I don't know how many of you, have heard about this or believe that this is a possible potential or maybe an inevitability that this happens one day. To me, it seems pretty far-fetched. It's something that I've been thinking about for a long time. And I know that, it kind of was born out of the Red Dawn era. The idea that there would be a physical occupier, that there would be this decapitation of the United States government, and that we would have sections cut off. And I guess back in the 80s, maybe even early 90s, even 2000s, maybe even today, looking at some of the headlines, people still believe that this is a prospect, that the United Nations would somehow take over the United States and impose martial law, round people up, put them on trains. Now, I do think that that's kind of, I wouldn't go as far as saying kooky, because, anything could happen in a time of disaster. All sorts of, governing bodies and all of these rules and the rules of engagement completely change during crises. So if there is one, you can expect that the government will respond however it sees fit. But, rounding up and putting people away in camps and turning this into a labor system, turning it into a North Korea where we all have to be forced into some kind of servitude, seems, unrealistic. When you look at the militarization of the police departments that's, only expanding under Donald Trump, that's the military takeover. Why the United Nations? I don't know. Maybe it was just one of these things, and people see the the UN peacekeepers at the state park, national parks, and they're like, they're taking over this place. They're taking over. So anyway, and that's not to, it's not to diminish, that thought, because it was a popular one at the time. But so much of it's privatized. I mean, if you look at Blackwater, it's kind of the archetypal evil mercenary company, guns for hire. And the highlight of the Iraq War, maybe one of the realizations, was the trillions of dollars that went into it, went into a handful of companies and made a lot of money, trillions of dollars for those that profit for war. And so, you have that. You have that right here in the United States. When you look at the people that protect, even people like Ron Paul, they have private security. They're kind of para police, if you will. So that's kind of the reality that we have. I mean, I don't know why people think that this would be so much worse. That this would somehow, is it because we have this sacrosanct line where we would not have foreigners policing the streets, shooting citizens potentially? I mean, that's kind of happening. Police departments, I don't know whether or not, institutionalized ones are doing any better a job than, the United Nations. That's what I don't understand. Is it a lack of funding? It's obviously something socially, an issue in Chicago. Look at all of the other factors. Of course, we talk about guns. It's the one thing that should be eliminated from the equation because, it's not that there are more guns in Chicago. You just have more desperate people that are born into a culture of violence, and that has persisted despite all of the money, all of the government intervention, all of the Democrats that have tried to stop the crime and the genocide. Why, the United Nations would be able to do that, and it was beyond me. It seems pretty stupid, and this is kind of one of the it causes more hype than it. I just couldn't believe that this would actually happen. It's more of an, it's call to attention. And Donald Trump said that maybe the FBI, maybe the U.S. military, the National Guard needs to come into Chicago. Some of you guys might actually believe that's a good thing. Anyway, so that's a story. I think it's interesting because so many people, think about the United Nations and this line that this sovereign nation and having foreign troops. When we host foreign troops all the time, all sorts of cross training with NATO and people that countries that buy military equipment. They come over here, they buy an F-35, they get trained. People freak out about it because it seems, I don't know. I think when you're inherently paranoid, and you should be, when you see that kind of stuff, it does. Because I looked at a lot of the articles. We see foreign troops over here. They're training on military bases. People inherently think that those people are being trained to attack them. I think that, whereas they're probably being trained to attack their own people in their own countries or foreign adversaries. That usually ends up being the case. And why are the Saudi Arabians flying jets in Arizona? Because they bought them. Anyway, let's see. Let's go to the phone lines. I think we have a caller here. Let's go to Chris near Las Vegas. Chris, welcome to Blacklisted Radio. What's on your mind?
Well, thank you so very much. It was with quite a bit of attention. I took note of who put that story out that you mentioned, whatever his rank was, Jerry Boykin. Mm-hmm. And I think it does well for public listeners and those who want to be in the know to recall that Jerry Boykin is part of the 10th Psychological Operations Division in the United States Army's PSYOPs mind control.
Really?
And when you know, yes, along with McInerney, comes from Colonel now General retired Paul A. Balali and his associate Michael Aquino, I think he was from the Philippines, who formerly were affiliated with Anton LaVey's Church of Satan, but then later created their own Church of Set.
Oh.
And they were involved in the Presidio child abuse, sexual abuse, it is, up in that area of Northern California.
Okay. Well, Chris, I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. I'd have to look into it. You made a lot of claims and accusations and lead-ins to people that I haven't heard of. So I think that that's interesting. I'd definitely look into the background. I don't know how Church of Satan necessarily UN ties in, but I mean, that's a rabbit hole. There you go. So the people out there that would like to go down that, I'm going to look into this guy. I want to see if he has a military background, and then what his role may be, and if it's part of a grander plot, to take over the United States. I don't know. I mean, I think it's happened in a lot of ways. So one of the big stories we should talk about is Bitcoin. Oh my goodness, it is. Well, it hit the $20,000 mark. It is now right here before the show. I looked at it. It was $18,494. That a Bitcoin was worth. Bitcoin futures have opened. This is pretty interesting. Now they're trading Bitcoin. You can get a futures contract going on Bitcoin. And the question, of course, is where does it go? Where does it go? And I'm sure the people that have Bitcoins that are part of the are just ecstatic. I think it's really, really interesting that we have some interestingly timed stories that came out in the Post. Long Island woman indicted for funding ISIS with Bitcoin. This came out right as this parabolic shift in the price happened, with intriguingly coincidental timing.
I put the fucking picture in it.
Hey, Ken, I can hear you. I can hear you back there. You got a live mic, and I don't know if you're yelling at the dog or yelling at the somebody else in the room, but it's pretty funny. With intriguingly coincidental timing as cryptocurrencies reach mainstream and grab the world's attention, the U.S. Justice Department has unsealed a grand jury indictment that shows a Long Island woman has been indicted on charges that she tried to funnel money to ISIS using Bitcoin. Now, you can unpack the story. It's New York Times or the Post. And, it looks like a FBI honeypot. I'm sure 6 months from now we'll find out a whole lot more about this story. But it's, rinse, repeat, regurgitate, put the story out there, backtrack it, put out a correction, 6 months from now. Nobody cares. But people always want to get your take on Bitcoin. I've been talking about Bitcoin for a long time, really since its inception, because I'm very interested in cryptocurrencies. Of course, let's just talk about it. Bitcoin, nobody knows where the hell it came from. And a lot of people think that it's a CIA/NSA project to create a currency, or maybe the globalists to create a currency. To replace the dollar, to further give people a lot less or less control over their money. Of course, the go-to reason that people like it is because it's not state issued. It's not from the government per se. It's mined. It's got a lot of similarities to gold in that. But the idea that Soku Nakamiki, whoever Nukamoshi created this system. I've always just find kind of I don't know, shady. Maybe that's some of the mystic or the mystique to it, or that there's the idea that if there was somebody out there that they could put it on as being the creator, the progenitor of the Bitcoin, they could go after them legally. So I don't know. I think that it's probably a bubble. It's probably going to burst at some point. It's going to be the next big thing and the thing that happened. Now, people have been saying that. If you're a Bitcoin enthusiast, you might not want to hear that. But the intrinsic value of it only exists in that people want it. People also want to have their currencies. I mean, why we have such a huge interest? I mean, look at Venezuela. We put a pretty compelling article up that highlights how they're looking to cryptocurrencies, the Russians as well, as a way to survive. China has pretty much outlawed any kind of cryptocurrency exchange. Russia's heavily regulating, and here in the Western world, we're seeing more and more regulations, more and more control that government wants to have over it. And so, obviously, the downside of the notion that it's anonymous, I think, is just silly. You can absolutely be tracked and traced to people. It has been, it will be, and if the NSA is behind it, this is a wet dream for those that want to use surveillance or use financial banking as the ultimate way to surveil and control a population. Much less like people dropping in with parachutes and taking over your house and living in a Red Dawn scenario. This is much more possible because you now see the mainstream interest. People like the Kardashians talking about, I'm buying Bitcoin. That's what scares me about Bitcoin. It's the hottest thing. So at some point it'll go up. Maybe it'll go down. Depends on how many other countries and how much of that wants to be privatized. Saw Dennis Rodman. He has his own pot coin. The cannabis industry is still operating outside of the banking structure for the most part. Still federally illegal to bank. One of the big problems that you have is tons of cash being, and the government would love to know where all the weed's going. If they could, it's great for them to have that information for a lot of reasons. But Podcoin's out there, and it's just one of many coins. Max Kaiser has a Max coin. I mean, there's Litecoin, there's Ethereum, there's a ton of other things. And so most of the people that are in there now are speculators, all of them. The only reason that, a Kardashian cares about Bitcoin is they're hoping that they can buy and it will continue to go up. And for those people, it would probably disappoint at some point pretty soon. But, it's inevitability and that it's going to go up or down. More and more people buy into it. The demand, I don't, how much of that's manipulated, how much of that's real, true, demand, how much of that's just another stock market rigged manipulator. We saw that with the LIBOR scam. We've seen that with the Forex. We've seen that with gold prices, silver prices. It's now all admitted. It's not conspiracy theory any longer. So it's not to say that the dollar isn't manipulated. A lot of people say, well, Doug, you're dissing the Bitcoin. And I'm not at all, actually. I'd love to have some of yours. I see we got a caller, AI, in West Virginia. We'll get to him on the other side. You can be part of it, 800-313-9443. It's Blacklisted Radio. All right, welcome back. Watch out. They may have a blue helmet. Probably do. All right, a lot to get into. We'll talk about Bitcoin. Ken and I were talking during the break about how, people are over I think politics and just burn out. I mean, I am, quite frankly, all the accusations, all the allegations. It's really hard to vet, and it just depends on what side of the aisle, whether you love or hate Donald Trump, whether you're, this flavor or that flavor, Republican, Democrat, big L, Libertarian, where, ever you fall in that spectrum. And we'll go to Al in just a second, 800-313-9443, but I mean, it's really burnt me out. So we'll talk about, I think, where it's going. I think Ken hit it on the head, and we'll get to that after your phone calls. Al in West Virginia, God's country. Al, welcome to Blacklisted Radio.
Yeah. Hey, I'd like to have a short conversation with you about that, but before I ask you, I'd like to ask you a question about Bitcoin, and that is, when it first started out, what was they selling for? What was the price? Do you remember?
Well, they sold for a penny at one point at the initial offering, I think. I would have to go back, but next to nothing. Very little.
Well, yeah, even if it was $1, that's cool. So now what are they up to? 1,400 and something?
No, we're talking 20,000, 18,000 right before the show.
Oh, okay. So it just keeps going up then. But don't you think that anybody in their right mind that would buy one for a penny or even $1 and it went up to 1,400 or 14, 18, 20,000, like you say, don't you think everybody and their brother would be cashing them in before it dropped? And if they did, don't you think that would bankrupt whoever the guy was that's financing it to begin with, or the woman, or whoever is behind it?
Well, that depends. That depends on the psyche of the people. I'm sure there's lots of people that have sold out. There's already people that have made money and sold out, and there's there's like over 1,000 people that control 40% of the Bitcoin. So when you talk about the consolidation of wealth, just like here, the 1%ers, you hear about those, or the 10th of 1%ers.
I understand.
They've got that too.
Yeah, I understand the numbers.
Yeah,
I understand the numbers, but myself, I think you'd have to be an idiot. I'd sell out right now.
Yeah.
Anytime you create something out of nothing, and it's nothing but a digital thing with a computer, how can you guarantee that? It can be hacked. It can be wiped out. It could be, if the Fed Reserve isn't behind it, it doesn't. Even if they are behind it, it still could be wiped out.
No, it's a great question. I'll answer it. I appreciate the phone call. Great to hear from you, Al. It's where people already are. People trust Bank of America with their money. They trust the system for the most part. That's why you have all the people that have tens of thousands, if not millions, trillions of dollars in banks. They don't see that money. They don't have physical control over it. They just believe that it's going to be there. And in most cases it is. And in rare cases, like a depression or, some kind of horrible situation, like in Puerto Rico, it's a perfect example, where you can't get to the bank because the bank, there's no, power. You find yourself in the same kind of, a lot of the similarities that you find in Bitcoin. So if, other than FCC regulation, maybe some government entity that's going to securitize your investment, that's the only difference. So one of the things that kind of makes Bitcoin cool is it's outside of that system. One of the things that makes it dangerous is that it's outside of that system. And the anonymity is not there when you have the financial securities that people want. But as long as people are spending Bitcoin using it as an actual currency, the problem is that, right now you have so many people, millions, billions of people that are, they want in only to make money. Like you said, Al, if you made the money, you were the smart guy. If you held it for the last 5 years or whatever it was since its inception, to capitalize on this day, that reward, and you sold it today, then you're a big time winner. But that's maybe 1% of people out there that bought the Bitcoin did that, or plan to do that. There's plenty of you out there listening that are holders. So quick break. Back on the other side. Your phone calls are welcome. You can tweet the show. BLN Radio is the handle. More in moments. Welcome back. It's Blacklisted Radio. Yeah, so when it comes to Bitcoin, one of the alluring things about it is that it is an alternative to the state-run system, the crony capitalism that spends creates trillions and trillions of dollars worth of debt for the American people, while a very, very, very small group of people, probably less than 10,000 on planet Earth, truly financially benefit and are that upper crust, that super class. One of the interesting things I think about it is that the marijuana industry, which is possibly in the target of the DA. No, it's what's his name? Just escaped me. The old crazy
Jeff
man.
Sessions?
There we go. Thank you, Ken. Jeff Sessions. That it's so helpful to have Ken around in the background. He's eyeing the federal prohibition, and now they are trying to label CBD, which is inert in effects that are psychoactive, i.e., it doesn't get you high, doesn't zoot you up, and whether or not there's a medical benefit, I mean, that's kind of the academic and scientific argument. I think when you look at it empirically, I mean, the benefits are huge. The research that we've seen about it, reducing tumors, their overall size. I mean, it's out there. Whether you can quantify it or not, I don't know. But you can go to any store and pick up aspirin, and that'll kill you if you eat enough of it. And whether or not you need it, whether or not you're medicating yourself, it's pretty. We don't care. We don't care about aspirin. Marijuana, does it really have a medical effect? Well, I mean, it's kind of in the eye of the beholder. If you get benefit from it, then why isn't it? Why isn't it better than Granny's salve or anything else that you can find? Vicks, NyQuil, put you to sleep and decongest you. I mean, if you can do that, then why can't you? Why can't you get high? Anyway, one of the things not being talked about, which I think is kind of sinister and possibly a larger conspiracy, is that states are now regulating people that have marijuana patient cards from buying firearms. Hawaii was kind of the test run. Almost no opposition to these bills, to this, destruction of your Second Amendment without even knowledge. Most people have no idea that this is happening. And they could have their weapons confiscated. So this is happening in more and more states. The NRA not saying a word about it. So, if you're a pessimist, you see where we're losing our rights. They're like, hey, we can take their guns. We can give them fake digital currencies. We'll make them buy pot coins so they can get high. Then we got those little slaves right where we want them. They're stoned, and we're taking everything and controlling it. And if they don't pay their taxes, we'll bop them on the head and make them work for a private contractor in a private prison somewhere. One of Trump's golf buddies is going to make a lot of money. That's not so far-fetched, and that's kind of the reality. And we're just not hearing about it. That is completely blacklisted. It's not on the 5 mainstream media networks and all of the pro Second Amendment groups, at least the ones that I think are vocal. I mean, the NRA being silent on this. When it comes to a waiting period, 2 days to make sure, I don't know, you're not enraged and ready to kill somebody back at your apartment. That's fine. Regulating whether or not you can have a grenade. I mean, the purity of the Second Amendment is so far from where we're at today. The interpretation. It's okay for you to have one of these little guns, but you can't have a working F-16. Can't go buy a missile from Raytheon, or maybe you can. Maybe you can. Talking about the Orwellian digital world we're going into. This story made a lot of headlines. Anti-homeless robot deployed in San Francisco. As the homeless population continues to surge, according to Andy Media in San Francisco, an animal advocacy and pet adoption clinic has taken the novel, if dystopian, approach of hiring an autonomous security robot to clear out vagrants. The SPCA is taking a lot of flack for this. It's horrible. You use a robot to harass hobos. This is a hobo harasser, and immediately, what do hobos do? They defecate and put it on the robot. And, a lot of the people that are bleeding hearts for the vagrants that are sleeping in the back of the SPCA, they probably are both on the far left, or at least a lot of those are aligned politically, and so you have a culture shock, clash. Can't be PETA, and there's no Republican people in PETA, are there? If you are, you probably keep it to yourself. You're probably castigated. Let's see. Do we still have the caller there, Ken? Sovereign Man in Freedom Land, place I want to go.
We do.
All right, let's go to him. A guy I want to be, a place I want to go. Sovereign Man in Freedom Land. Welcome to Blacklisted Radio.
It's about time you're back.
I am back. Thank you.
Said every now and then, it's kind of hard to tell, but you're still alive and well.
I am. I don't know about well. We had a lot of sickness here. I had like a bout of just horrible congestion, and that's one of the reasons we didn't do the show.
Oregano P73, American Urban Spice. Get it in your home.
Okay. Good advice. So what's on your mind tonight?
Well, I just want to throw a caveat out to my buddy Chris near Las Vegas. That commissioner's name is Richard Boykin, and the other guy with SEAL Team 6, PSYOP, blah, 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 his name is Jerry Boykin. They're two different individuals.
All right. There you go. So, good to know. So not the Luciferian, just another guy that likes the UN, wants to bring him to Chicago.
Just another individual that's riding on that Luciferian horse, man. I mean, if this guy brings the UN troops into Chicago, there's going to be a lot of target shooting with blue targets.
You think so? You think a lot of the gang members are going to go out? Because I'm not going to Chicago. I don't know about how.
Oh, it ain't the gang members, brother. It's the Americans.
You think
when UN troops wind up on U.S. soil, it's war.
Well, I mean, but we invited them. I mean, they fly them in. I don't know.
People
might be happy to see them. I mean, yeah. I mean,
who's this wing that you speak of?
I'm talking about the people of Chicago. I mean, I don't live there. I don't know how much they'd like that.
I don't know about the people of Chicago. Look at the devils that are running Chicago. Come on, man.
It's Rahm Emanuel's land.
Yeah, I mean, they're all devils. And it's a sad thing because the only people there are the criminals, and the criminals are running the show.
Yeah, there's a lot of good people caught in the crossfire. No doubt about that, man.
Yeah. Pray for people in Chicago, but most importantly, pray for the children, man. They don't have a chance. Oh, by the way, I got this hard drive here. I got like a 32-digit encryption code.
Yeah.
I could sell you each individual code. I'll do you a deal for about $100 a piece.
I don't know what I would use it for, but I appreciate the offer, Sovereign Man. Thanks for the phone call. If you want, if anybody is interested, get with me. Ken can get you with the Sovereign Man. You get you a encrypted key right there. I just don't have any Bitcoin. That I have a digital wallet for the cryptocurrency. I'm not invested in Bitcoin, so I'm kind of out on it. I was one of those guys. I was a pessimist, and it's not to say that I was wrong. Peter Schiff is a pretty interesting economist, and definitely a gold bug, big time gold fan. And he's like, yeah, it's just because you make money off of it, if you won, doesn't mean it's right. I mean, people won off of pets.com. There's a lot of bubbles that people won on. There's a lot of people that invest now that are going to, be holding the bag if it blows up, which I imagine it has. I mean, I think that it won't totally go to zero. I mean, there's always going to be some kind of use for it, but, where it ends up and what the trajectory is, how long that takes, that's for people that like to play games. I mean, you can bet basketball and try to get a triple parlay. You can get a good payout on that too. So if you're looking for action, there's probably a lot of online bookies you can find. Let's see. Al Franken is going to be replaced with a former Minnesota Planned Parenthood vice president. Planned Parenthood has definitely been out there and getting a lot of heat for the selling of baby parts. Saw an article about one of the restrictions. I think it might have even been California going after them, which is pretty hard to imagine. But I saw this, and I just thought, wow, Al Franken gave up his seat. Dennis Hoffman. I mean, every day there's more and more accusations. Probably rightfully so. I mean, I'm not dismissing all of these claims that people are putting forth with all these people that have just, used power, influence, and their privilege, dare I say it, over others to get them into the film industry. But I think that people are like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened to Glenn Close. I can't believe that happened to, Mark Wahlberg or whoever. Nobody cares about porn stars. Where's the outrage? I'm sure many of them had to do some pretty horrible things to get into films themselves. But nobody's crying for them because they did it willingly, Doug, right? Well, I kind of feel like if you have sex with Harvey Weinstein to get into a film, it's pretty horrific. I mean, look at the guy, but, it's kind of on you, Now, if he raped you, that's a different story. That's completely different. But, lots of people do things that are, I don't know, at least some of us judgmentally from a, third party perspective, sit up here and say, that's horrible. Can't believe people would do that. But I just think that it's kind of funny, the selective outrage about this. Not that, rapers or, pedophiles or creepers like, Dennis Hoffman or, any of these guys. That's the latest. His story came out that he exposed himself to a minor. These things should be investigated. I don't know about statute of limitations, where it goes. The character assassination of these Hollywood heroes. What it really means, where it ends up. I mean, I just never really heroified or glorified these people. I think it's definitely a mind effort for those that are, in love with the Hollywood elite. Saw this story, fentanyl, one of the many uses. Fentanyl is just, really, really refined opium, just like heroin. So it's a derivative of opium, and it's highly deadly and very, very effective and very prominent. One of the things that's pretty interesting is we have the opioid crisis here in America. America is on opium, but we've never seen higher production from Afghanistan and other countries occupied by the United States post 2003 invasion of Afghanistan, or 2001 Afghanistan, 2003 Iraq. There was never any poppy production. Well, where does all that poppy go? I mean, imagine a lot of it does make its way to the black market via CIA planes and other places and measures. I mean, I'm sure there's some camels going through Tora Bora to bring opium to dealers in Europe. It could be happening. Well, anyway, saw this story: fentanyl to be used to kill prisoners. So another fine use. Nobody wants to make those other drugs that kill prisoners. A lot of people have. Just one of the more novel things. One of the things that was the big story was that people were prescribing doctors specifically opioids for all sorts of things beyond what they should traditionally be used for. But it's just those darn big execs at big pharma always find a way to make a freaking buck off of it. So anyway, we got Kathy in Missouri. Let's go to Kathy, then we'll take a break, and then we're going to talk about where we go post-political, and a story that I thought would catch traction. I don't even know if it measures on the needle anymore, but we'll talk about it. Kathy, welcome to Blacklisted Radio.
Hi, I don't have a very good cell connection here, so I apologize, but I just had a quick thought with this whole abuse of power thing. Okay, when you get someone in that kind of power, it's just really crazy. I'm a female. I got disparaged the other day on another show because I talked about in Alabama, and I've heard upright Christian men, okay, say things in Alabama that are so perverted and like predatory that it blew my freaking mind. I grew up in New Orleans. You hear me?
Right.
I've heard a lot of stuff in my day. But listen, it's out of control. Perverts. You never hear anybody going off on the pornography. Okay, there used to be a guy in Republic that would push back on that. All the men need to pull the plug, stop looking at everything that walk by. It's just gotten so nasty. I mean, seriously, my ex-husband is looking like freaking Jesus right now. I had no idea how scumbag things had gone. I'm serious, and I tell him that. But we're still very affable and pleasant. But I mean, seriously, this is like so out of control. He was too soft. You understand me? He didn't have the back.
What do you think can be done, and who should do it?
Pull the plug. First off, all we can do is control our own lives. Pull the plug. Dignity and respect. If it isn't uplifting and edifying, shut up. Period. End of story. That's all we can do. I'm preaching to the choir too.
Right.
It's not just the men; it's everyone. Society has gone into the crapper, and it'd be nice if we could, basically raise the bar a bit. And I say pull the plug. I tell everyone pull the plug. If it isn't pure and uplifting, don't listen to it. Don't watch it. I've never paid a cable bill in my life, ever. I don't own a TV, and my father was very careful. I was not permitted to watch much television in my life. I've only seen like 20 movies, Hollywood, in my life. I'm not kidding. So I'm a kind of an exception to this whole degenerate rule. And in spite of my poverty, I'm still a pretty happy lady. I read a lot. I listen to the radio quite a bit. And I'm writing Christmas cards right now. So, I mean, I find lots to do, but I have people ask me, what do you do? You don't have a TV. What do you do?
Right.
Even intelligent people, what do you do?
Sure.
I'm like, I do a lot of stuff. My house is clean. And, I don't have bugs, and I keep my house clean, and I think that helps. I've seen inside some people's homes. Oh, my God, people are living like pigs today. Even upper middle-class people. You go in their homes, it's a nightmare sometimes. It's like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
Like, turn off the TV. Do something else. Race cars.
No, I think that's great outlook at life and a great way to approach it. And hopefully some of our listeners take that to heart and think about that. It's almost the season for new beginnings and all of those resolutions for the 2018 new year. Appreciate it. Merry Christmas to you and your family. We'll be back on the other side. It's Blacklisted Radio. All right, welcome back. It is Blacklisted Radio. Final segment here. Pentagon acknowledges secret UFO investigation program. Now, where is the people? This is the first time that we have this admitted program. I don't know if it even moved the needle on blacklistednews.com. Got some comments, not a lot of them though, but considering how many people have wanted to see this. They actually have a New York Times video here of a U.S. Navy jet encountering a UFO. Literally, this is from the New York Times. And it's pretty compelling. I mean, in the day and age of drones and all of the other types of technology that we know that are out there. The stealth bomber was being developed in the 1970s, and they show some of the Lockheed Martin prototype photos that were recently, within the last few years, were declassified, showed all sorts of vehicles. So it's hard to say, is it extraterrestrial? Is it from somewhere else, or is it just some, high-tech super stuff that we're seeing that the government's testing and, where that collides? It's got to be some of both, right? If you believe that we have been touched. Stephen Hawking says that there are aliens. It's really part of this reverberation from, I think, a lot of the academic elite, and this prospect, I think a lot of people hope that there's aliens. It brings, especially if you've castigated God. If you've said that God is dead, then what more is, why do we have a purpose on, planet Earth? If you don't believe that there's a higher purpose or that there's some master plan, then you might see us as bacteria. You might see us as problematic to all the beautiful creatures, and thus, that's why the machines, the AI machines, you start asking them, should we kill the people? They're like, yes, kill the people. At some point, I don't know. I think that we will be able to, manhandle the machines, I think, ultimately, but maybe not. It depends on who's controlling them, where that goes. It's a great debate, but regardless of where I think it should go, other countries, without some kind of new world order, you're not going to have any kind of standardized practices. on any of that kind of innovation and how it's militarized and used. Russia's got a lot of automated drone weaponry and automated tanks. You know, kind of reminds me of this old game, Mech War. It really dates me, but anyway, you know, that's kind of that's the reality here in, you know, the 21st century, 2017 going into 2018. So check it out. Yeah, pretty compelling. They talk about this secret defense budget where they spent $22 million in advanced aerospace threat identification programs. Created a lot of interesting videos that I imagine they will put out there for the interest of people reading the New York Times. I think if you get bored of politics in general, then, you know, there has to be some other kind of catnip to keep people reading, to keep them, to entertain them. And I do think that this is part of I mean, I've always heard, you know, one day, Doug, Project Bluebeam, they're going to shoot God from the sky. I mean, there's a chance. You never know.